Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to Friday, last day of August, last day of summer, really. I mean, I don't care if they say that it goes to September 21st. It never really does. It ends after Labor Day weekend. I've got a new co-host here today. Mr. Chris Geiser joins me live from Yorkville.
James, good to be here, bud.
Good to have you, Chris. Now, quickly, let's talk about how we came to meet each other. Was over a cannabis deal, right?
It was. It's funny, sometimes a perfect storm just happens and you get to meet great people.
Exactly.
It actually really starts backfire, funny enough, over an espresso, but we can maybe talk about that another time.
Tell me.
I ended up calling a gentleman that was friends with our family from a long time ago, and he put me onto a private company that was very interesting to me, and even more so interested in meeting you.
Yeah. Which we did. In that boardroom over there.
Right around the corner.
And now I'm going to write a check.
Hey, even good. Hopefully another one from me too. So we made that introduction together, and I think you and I hit it off pretty good, so we figured
You seem reluctant to say the name of the company.
Growpacker. Fantastic company. Co-packing all your needs, anything you need.
Right on. Okay, so let's talk about Growpacker for a second, because I want to know, what attracted you to this company? What's your background in cannabis investing?
Well, I think it's more my background in cannabis
than
investing.
That's how I got here too.
Right?
So
I think a lot of us did,
yeah.
and I think I speak for a lot of people, my demographic, my age, for anyone really, who has even just seen the product itself come from such a basic stick and seeds type thing to what we see now, and everything's infusing and doing all this. And someone real smart said to me, one of my good friends said to me, he said, with this cannabis industry and all the investing that's going on, it's going to be crazy, but maybe start looking at the guys who are providing the, I guess, proverbial dime bag instead, who's doing the packaging. Where's that? Because these are the type of companies I think are going to survive, and the kind of companies in the long run that don't have to worry about the regulation on their cultivation and all that. So I was looking out for one of these kind of co-packing companies to see if I can get involved with, and this one kind of fell on my lap. I looked into it, and they have an incredible managerial team, and I thought, I thought we'll give that one a go.
So this is a private company for you out there who are wondering what the hell we're talking about, who does co-packing. As Chris said, they're going to produce the packaged goods for companies that want to produce and distribute products into markets like California, and they have a great depth of expertise in logistics and fulfillment and end-to-end value chain. I shouldn't be saying so much about them because I actually don't know that much about them yet, but that's how Chris and I met. And everybody out there in the YouTube world, I want you to fire any questions you got into the chat room and ask Chris anything you want. We'll take those questions throughout our conversation. Coming up on today's show, we have Kerry Knoll is going to join us. He's the chairman of Generation Mining, trading on the CSE under the symbol GENM. Our news nurse of the day is Alessandro Bruno. Kim Rivers is going to be here with our lovely and talented Nika Domi for part 2 of her fantastic interview. And then Chris and I are going to have a chat with Dr. Nilank Jha, who is the CEO of Green Relief, another private company that is going to be making headway. You probably heard me talk about them before. They make the best CBD isolate in the world as far as I'm concerned, and I have tried a few of them. But right now, here's Alessandro Brunner with the news.
Here's what's making cannabis headlines news this Friday, August 30th. Planet 13 Holdings announced financial results for the 3-month period ending June 30th, 2019. Revenues were $16.5 million. Net loss was $1 million, or 1 cent per share. Cash at the end of the quarter was $20 million. Dixie Brands announced its second quarter 2019 financial results. Expressed in US dollars, revenue was $2.99 million in the second quarter of 2019. Net loss attributable to the company was $6.8 million, or 6 cents per share. Dixie had $2.3 million of cash at the end of the quarter. Plus Products released its unaudited financial and operational results for the 3 and 6 months ending June 30th, 2019, expressed in US dollars. Revenues climbed to $3.6 million in Q2 2019. Loss and comprehensive losses for the period were reported at $5.4 million or 17 cents per share. Cash and cash equivalents at the end of the quarter were $34.1 million. Forefront Ventures announced the interim unaudited financial results for the quarter ending June 30th, 2019. Revenue for Forefront Holdings was $4.3 million. Net loss for the quarter was $5.35 million, and cash at the end of the quarter was $2.4 million. Calithera Therapeutics reported financial results for the second quarter of 2019. The company had no revenues from product sales in Q2 and recorded a net loss of approximately $5.4 million or 1 cent per common share. At the end of the quarter, cash and cash equivalents and other receivables increased to approximately $1.6 million. Bang Inc. will begin trading today on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol BHNGF, having graduated from the Pink Sheets market. There is no action required by current shareholders in connection with this change. Blueberries Medical has closed its oversubscribed non-brokered private placement of units at a price of 25 cents per unit for total gross proceeds of $3.45 million. Each unit consists of 1 common share and 1 share purchase warrant at a price of 35 cents. The net proceeds of the offering will be used to further expand the company's Colombian cultivation and extraction facilities. Enwave Corporation has signed a royalty-bearing commercial sub-license with Glasshouse Botanics, Inc. Glasshouse Botanics cultivates medicinal cannabis at its licensed facility in Ontario, Canada. The license grants Glasshouse Botanics a non-exclusive right to use Enwave's proprietary radiant energy vacuum dehydration technology for the drying of cannabis in Canada. Under the terms of the license, Glasshouse Botanics will pay Enwave a usage-based royalty tied to the weight of the finished dried cannabis dried using the REV machine. FSD Pharma has launched a private placement of up to $5 million of its Class B subordinate voting shares at a price of 10 cents per share Canadian, without any warrant coverage. The company expects to close the private placement by September 30th, 2019. The net proceeds will be used for the expansion of the company's biosciences division. Liberty Health Sciences announced that it will open its 17th dispensary in Panama City, Florida, on September the 3rd, 2019, subject to approval from the Florida Department of Health. This is Liberty's first dispensary to open in Bay County. Sundial Growers has entered into a syndicated credit agreement with ATB Financial and Bank of Montreal as lenders. The lenders will provide Sundial with an initial $90 million of secured debt facilities, comprised of an $84 million senior secured term credit facility and a $6 million senior secured revolving operating facility. Upon closing of the credit agreement, approximately $48 million of the credit facility was drawn to refinance amounts owing under the company's prior debt facility with ATB. And that's your news for today. For the latest weed stock news, visit the Cannabis Daily on MidasLetter.com.
Yeah, so once again, a bunch of earnings from a bunch of companies where earnings is actually a what do you call that? Oxymoron. No, oxymoron. It's a contradiction in terms. It's not earnings, it's losses. But what can you do? People are doing their best, and just want to point out, and tell me what you think about this, Chris, but these companies have raised a lot of money, and they're taking that money and they're making investments in infrastructure so that they can produce greater quantities of whatever product they're focused on. So of course, those investments are going to show up as losses, and the company's going to report a loss because they're spending money for future growth, right?
To try to build the infrastructure for themselves.
Which is, so this is the problem I have with the whole cannabis market, is like we've built this thing so far on a speculative basis, But now the market is valuing the companies on a fundamental basis when they're not ready for fundamental prime time yet. They're not generating profit at this point. They're still generating losses because they're just starting.
Well, yeah, I could see that the speculation phase the honeymoon phase of that is faded out, and people really want to see the hard data now.
Exactly.
Right?
They want to see profit.
Profit. They want to see sales. They want to see, yeah.
Exactly. Nika Domi joined me with, joined me. Nika Domi was talking to Kim Rivers from Trulieve, and they have a second part of that conversation. If you caught the first part yesterday, here's that second part.
Hey, I'm Nika Domi, and here is part 2 of my interview with Kim Rivers from yesterday.
So, we exited last quarter with $57.9 million in revenue and $31.6 million of EBITDA, which was great. It's a record quarter for us with 30% quarter-over-quarter revenue growth.
That is a record, yes. Everybody's talking about it.
So, which is great. And you know what? I think that just the focus on profitability across the sector is a huge shift from, even when we went public a year ago. So I think it's just incredibly refreshing to see that now the sector as a whole and investors are very focused on this path to profitability and asking questions about how companies are converting revenue to true profits. And then we did release updated guidance, which we're very excited about. And so we had guidance previously, and we are a company that we do deep modeling. And so we model everything from patient growth to number of physicians in a state like Florida. We're looking at trends. We're looking at price, customer value. And so, we have a lot of confidence in our numbers, and we feel very comfortable giving guidance. And so our guidance for 2019 is that we'll be exiting 2019 between 220 and 240 in revenue and 95 to 105 in EBITDA, which we feel good about. And then moving into 2020, we'll be somewhere around 400 million in revenue and then 150 million or so in EBITDA. So it's just incredible to think about really how far we've come, and then again, just this industry and how it's just moving so quickly.
It's moving so quickly, but what amazed me and why I wanted to bring you here is not only because you are a woman in the sea of men, right? So it's been an inspiration to me as to how did she do it. I really wanted to just have a chat and see how did you do this, and you seem to flow with it with such an ease.
Thank you.
And I think it's the background of you having the law background, and also all these things that you have been putting together for such a long time, where you were able to have the growth, which is what a lot of companies were focused on at first. It's growth, building.
Right.
You have that down, and then now you are at profitability, which others are still really kind of trying to get there. So you are way ahead of so many companies. As a lady, and I didn't bring the Superwoman hat, but we should have definitely. Are you from Marvel or a comic? Yeah. It's just incredible. Definitely Superwoman, Kim. So tell me more about maybe some of your most popular products, because there's a lot of talk about vaping being more popular. Then some states might be, more about the smoking, the flower. So because Florida is still just the medical, right? Yes, only medical.
That's right.
So at the moment, you're only able to kind of be focused on the medical products. So what are the most popular, am I right? Or what are the most popular
it's
products
such an interesting, the dynamic between, medical and recreational, especially when you talk about products, it becomes a very interesting and dynamic conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because, and I find it funny because we've been taught for so long that if something is medical, that it can't be pleasant. It has to have sort of a bad taste, or it has to make you feel a certain way that's not just a good feeling.
Where cannabis is very pleasant.
Yes, cannabis is it's a very different, I think, at its core. And so I think that there's a lot of crossover. And the reason I say that is because, we may have, and we see it all the time, someone who has a specific medical condition that is on a regimented dose of products, maybe capsules or a tincture, what have you, that then, they may come in on a Thursday and they may get, a shatter or a crumble or something different because they want to have a nice time on a Friday.
Yes.
And so I think that we almost do a disservice in this industry by talking so specifically that a product product has to fall into a particular category. In contrast, we have in Florida a very large veteran population,
Yes.
and so a lot of men and women who have severe PTSD issues, panic attack issues. They need really a very strong rescue type medication, and so for them, a very strong distillate vape or a strong crumble or shatter product to get them off of that verge of a panic attack is very important, and that is being used medicinally. So products that we would think of or categorize maybe historically as more rec actually can be used. So it does, I think, the conversation needs to be broadened a bit.
That's a very good point.
So I would say that in our market, though, it's typical to most, I would call it, more mature medical light markets, and that flower has come on very strong. We started selling flower. We were the first company to sell flower in the state of Florida in March, and that's now just surpassed last week over 50% of our product mix.
Oh wow!
So flowers come on very, very strong, and then second is going to be the vape products. So we have a variety. We have 4 different types of vape product lines, and then different varying SKUs within those product lines. We're waiting for edibles to come on board in Florida. Excited about those coming. Yep, very similar, and so we continue to bring new products to the market all the time. We just brought a nano line, which has nanoparticles. That,
I saw that on your website. That's so exciting.
It's very exciting. I think it's going to change the game because one of the challenges, as you know, with oral products is that it absorbs into, it has to be digested, and so it can hit folks between 45 an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. It varies in terms of onset. And the bioavailability is much better than, say, a vape product, but the onset makes it a bit unpredictable for folks. And so with a nano product, it actually, the uptake is between 15 and 20 minutes.
Yes.
So similar to a vape, yet the bioavailability is similar to an oral product.
And that's a great technology.
It's fantastic. And so we're really looking forward to expanding that product line throughout all of our stores.
That's beautiful. So nanoparticles are very, very tiny percentage of very tiny particles, so they're better absorbed,
That's right?
Is that what
That's
it
right.
is?
Yep.
Okay.
So they're absorbed directly into the bloodstream as opposed to having to go through and be digested, for example, through the gut.
Beautiful. Yeah. I'm excited to try one of those maybe when I'm in Florida.
Sure, come visit anytime.
And I will, definitely. Now I wanted to ask, because there's a lot of talk about the regulations changing in the States. We're all sitting at the edge of our seats about that one.
Yep.
So can you tell us more from the American perspective, how it's looking right now with all the elections coming up and the regulations changing and state by state and hopefully federally soon. So how will that affect Trulieve, and what kind of information can you tell us here in Canada about the regulations?
Well, of course we watch both state and federal, regulations very, very closely. On the federal level, I think we're all very hopeful that the SAFE Act, the Safe Banking Act, will continue to gain momentum and will pass. The effects of that, I think there are varying opinions with respect to what the ramifications of that will be. What I can tell you is that we're already starting to see, from Trulieve's perspective, that mid-tier banks who previously had no really interest in the space, reaching out, wanting to have meetings, kind of prepping for that to come down. And there have been some recent guidance that's been updated for those banks. And so I do think that access to capital will be broadened. To what extent, I think, remains to be seen. Of course, the one that we're all, publicly traded companies are very interested in is a regulation that would allow us to list also on the exchanges in the U.S. I think that that's got a bit of time yet. With respect to the election, we have a very dynamic president who has lots of opinions about lots of things, and so I do think that we're starting to see, which is amazing in and of itself. We're starting to hear cannabis become an election topic.
It is,
which
yes.
just that in and of itself is pretty mind blowing when you think about it. And so I think that a couple of things. One, if we could get the SAFE Act passed, that will be the first standalone piece of legislative policy that passes at the national level. Again, breaking through that inertia and getting that just over the finish line is historic, and I think will pave the way for additional regulations behind it. On the state level, Florida has a lot going on right now. We have two initiatives for adult use or recreational marijuana. So there is a possibility, it's polling very well, there is a possibility that we could see a recreational initiative on the ballot in 2020 in the state of Florida, which would be incredible also. Again, thinking about Florida's political kind of past and where we've come. So, and it's polling in the upper 60s right now, so which is exciting.
It has a lot of people voting for that, yeah.
It does. I mean, the challenge in Florida is it will be a citizen-led ballot initiative, so it really is coming from the people in Florida. And I think as the stigma changes, right?
Yes.
As more and more folks have a loved one or become familiar with Trulieve and our products or other products in the state, they're realizing that that this is a positive and that the movement is here. And so let's embrace it and regulate it appropriately and move forward. So.
And I've noticed, I was reading somewhere, you are a part of a committee. Can you tell us more about that? Because that's really good that you're and you have time to be so active also. And it's good for Trulieve that your presence is out there where, people are looking for the extra information and the regulators are actually looking for the extra information from the insiders. So can you tell me more about your role in that committee and what committee it is?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would just say globally, I feel like as a CEO in this space, we have a public responsibility to be active in the markets in which we operate and to certainly be sources of information for regulators and for the government because a lot of times they're learning, and so to have industry's voice present is very important. So yes, I was appointed by our Commissioner of Agriculture in the state of Florida to serve on a committee to advise her and her team on medical marijuana.
Yes.
And so that committee is active right now, and we're meeting and we're discussing upcoming issues and challenges. Florida also just passed a very robust hemp law, and so we're talking through how those two worlds interact and intersect, and what the industry and how that industry will develop in Florida as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's developing very fast from what we see, and Trulieve is at the forefront for sure. Now, I come also from a lot of psychology. Like, psychology is my hobby and is my educational background. And I wanted to ask you, what are some of the motivations that led you to success? What are some of the thoughts, some of the advice maybe that you could give to business owners or people who are just starting out their businesses? What is like that core ideology that you could share that has helped you personally, not just the company, but you personally get through and get to this level?
So, one thing that, and this is both personally and with the company, is to surround yourself with positivity.
Right.
And I think that's so important. And to just, I have a saying that says, there's only room for one rookie, and that would be me. So, embracing expertise, not being afraid to ask for help, being collaborative, and creating a team that's really focused and driven and passionate. And I think that as a female in this industry, I would say one of the competitive edge, if you will, is not shying away from connectivity, not shying away from really wanting to embrace the fact that this industry is emotional. This topic is emotional, and that's okay, because when we think about where cannabis has come from and really the propaganda and just the stigma that's been created over the years, and now as a company we're trying to break through that and educate and really churn that conversation in 180 degrees. And so it's a lot of personal journeys. When people are coming into our stores for the first time, there's a lot going on there emotionally, and we've just have a culture within our company that we're meeting people where they are, and that we're going to make this a positive and embracing experience.
And I think that is definitely the key to your success, because when I see the stores, even the pictures of I haven't been there personally, but there's just that vibe, that positive vibe that's just radiating from it. And I think it really comes from the core that is you, because you said positivity was the first thing on your mind. And keeping positive, we attract positive results, and we attract positive people, right? So I think that kind of all works itself together into a whole, which is able to elevate you then, and you're kind of riding on this wave of positivity and attracting more. So it is really important for business owners, I guess, and people out there who are leading any kind of company to remain positive, because it is so easy to, you're listening to different shareholders, and they could have some negative things to say here and there, but it's really easy to take it in and become depressed, but shielding yourself from that and having that positivity is so important, right? So
absolutely, and
your clients feel that, and then that's where the revenues come from.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I think also, being open to different ideas and being able to pivot to really take feedback and create, again, that forward momentum and energy from it. So we talk a lot.
Transform it into the positive.
Absolutely. We talk a lot in our company, both in our C-suite and management level, about creating feedback loops and making sure that we are constantly listening, that we're not seen as sort of this, big corporation that is, folks can't penetrate through and really be heard. And so, and again, I think that as this industry evolves, it is so important to make sure that we're listening to ideas wherever they may come from, and we're taking the best of those and putting them into action.
And what is, actually, I was going to ask, your patients, you have a lot of patients, so what is the growth rate currently? Do you know the numbers?
Yeah, so in Florida has one of the fastest growing patient bases in the country, and so we're at about 2,800 patients per week coming into the program, and so it's full steam ahead.
Wow, that's amazing. So that will definitely help with the new dispensaries to start booming right away.
Absolutely.
I'm sure people are eager to see them in their
areas.
areas.
It's incredible. We have, when we have a grand opening, we typically have, huge lines, and it's very much a celebratory event. Folks ask for us. We have a tool on our website where folks can ask for a dispensary near them, and so it's one of the ways that we look for new locations. And our stores we hit the ground running, which makes onboarding very interesting, because there is no such thing as a soft opening in our business. It's very much, day one, you're going to be very busy, and we like I said, we hit the ground running. So
I'd like to see one of those dispensaries, or some of them one day. I was going to also ask, because I liked on your website there was section for medical doctors.
Yes.
And I was very impressed with that, because I know that when a company connects with those who are actually prescribing their product, that is a huge thing, because that's what makes you the first thing on the doctor's mind, your company, right? So how does that work? How does that system work?
So we have a team of folks that work with us, and we realized very early on. So when we opened the doors of our first dispensary,
and that is so smart,
in Tallahassee, we had literally, I want to say, 500 calls in a few hours, and so we took that feedback and we actually opened up a call center. So we have a fully staffed call center within our company that's manned, and so someone can actually call and talk to someone. With that, we have a physician hotline as well, so physicians and their assistants can also call in and talk to folks that are experts. But aside from that, we have team members who go out into the field, and as opposed to just following a pharmaceutical model where you have pharma reps, I thought it was important, and we thought it was important, that those folks are not only engaging with doctors, but they're also engaging with patients on a regular basis. And so they're both community educators, is what we call them. So they attend events in their territory, and they also call on doctors in their territory. So again, that feedback loop becomes important, because a doctor is able to get feedback. This is what that person's hearing in the field from patients or from customers of the doctor. And then for the doctor, we're able to say, this is what we're hearing in terms of whether it be somebody can't get in to get an appointment, or we're hearing that folks would like X, Y, or Z in terms of a service option from you. And so we're really, again, on that front line and look to be the bridge to help that physician, grow their business, but also, of course, to make sure that the patients and the customers are getting the best service from their medical professional.
And that way you're addressing any type of issue right away, so you're able to correct it so fast before that client leaves not says anything.
That's right.
Because I know for example, from cosmetics, sometimes clients, they'll be very quiet about the things that they don't like. They don't always speak up, but when they're asked, when they're engaged, and the doctors are engaged, and that just gives the clients an ability to stay with you, right?
That's right.
That's just an amazing thing also. So see, so many things are piecing together. Now we can put together this puzzle of why Trulieve is so successful. So this is just an amazing story. I'm super inspired by this. I know that I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, there was actually a lot of talk, and a lot of people on Twitter have been asking me to ask you about this whole share unlock situation. If you could explain something about that. I know that there was some shares unlocking recently.
Sure.
And there's some postponed. Is that how
That's right? And so as a founder, primarily founder-based company, right? We had and have founder shares, and so as part of our goal, which is to make sure that we're communicating appropriately to our shareholders, and that we're also being intentional about how those shares come out and become unlocked. And so the founder group did enter into a lockup agreement, and there was a portion of those shares that became unlocked, and then there will be another portion of those shares, small portion, 10%, that will be unlocked in January of 2020.
Yes.
So what's available in the market now is available in the market, and then the next unlock will be in January of 2020.
Yes, I've seen the stock actually doing really good yesterday. It popped up, so it's just ready for our interview today.
Yes,
it's like
that's right.
The market's listening.
That's right. That's
it's all
right.
that positive energy combined.
Right. That's right. Yeah, and I mean, this is it's a very volatile sector, which we know.
Especially now.
And the summer is the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's funny. I'll have bankers or folks call and say, "Oh my gosh, are the stock price, et cetera?" And I say, I'm just sitting here looking at our financials, and I feel really great. And so one of the things that we've really been focused on is making sure that we've got capital in the bank to perform on our projected numbers, and so that we're not having to go back to the capital markets for organic growth, and that we are able to sustain and meet our updated guidance, as we just talked about, via internal capital. And so we just had a debt raise. We also just announced a sale leaseback transaction. So again, being mindful of accessing capital in non-dilutive ways is very important, and that's something that we've been focused on. So I feel like we're in a great position that we aren't we're not dependent on the capital markets from a execution standpoint, and that we're able to meet our stated goals.
That's a very positive thing. Yeah, so definitely it's been such a pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming to Toronto for this event today, and thanks everyone for watching our interview with Kim Rivers from Trulieve.
Bye.
Setting my alarm for 6. Oops, I think we're up here. Yeah, he's playing a... So this is, well, we turned ourselves down, I think. Live. Oh yeah, hey, how's it going, everybody? Yeah, that's right, we're delayed. Anyways, yeah, the conversation's so good here. You don't believe what you've missed. Anyway, so how about that, how about Kim Rivers? Is she not an impressive lady?
Absolutely.
And Trulieve is an impressive company. $400 million in revenue coming down the pike. I mean, amazing. I bet you Trulieve is going to be one of the first companies that actually reports profit on an unadjusted basis. This. Have you noticed? Do you read financials much?
Not too much.
Good.
Not too much.
Good. So I can say anything I want. You won't be able to call bullshit.
I'll fact check you later.
But okay. But anyway, so the crop of earnings that have come out over the last 2 weeks are uniformly characterized by losses, and but some of these companies are reporting adjusted EBITDA of positive. And the implication for the reader is that this is profit essentially. They can't report it as profit. They have to report it as adjusted net profit, which means as soon as you see the word adjusted before any metric reported in a financial statement, it's non-IFRS and non-GAAP compliant. GAAP being generally accepted accounting practices in the US, IFRS being international financial reporting standards, which is what's used in Canada and Europe.
Nice way of cooking the books.
Basically, yes, creative accounting 101. IFRS should not, IFRS is just a disaster. GAAP is not even as good as it should be, but it's way better than IFRS. If we talk to Al Rosen, who we might have on as a guest again soon, Al Rosen was called by the Supreme Court of Canada as their main witness against bad accounting practices. He's written books on it. Anyways, he's basically my accounting guru. He's the most honest guy when it comes to accounting, and he's so knowledgeable. He's 1,000 years old. He probably wouldn't mind me saying he's 1,000 years. He's actually, 1,010. But he's very knowledgeable, and we're going to get him back on the show, I hope, soon. So Trulieve, yeah. I want a quick shout out to our sponsor, Halo Labs. Halo Labs is one of the fastest growing producers of extracted cannabis products in the country. They just reported earnings, reported a 300% increase in the last quarter of revenue over the last quarter in the same period of the previous year. They're going to be in Toronto for the MJ Biz Conference. We're going to have Kieran Sidhu here next week, who's going to give us an update on what the company's been doing. They just reported an investment in another company. Anyways, go to halocanna.com to check out their products. Chris, do you know anything about Halo Labs?
They're south of the border. No, I know that you represent them, so I follow them on your website.
Yeah. So Halo, for those who don't know, and yes, this is me paying the rent on my studio. Halo is I think they're the 20% of the California extract market. They have extract facilities in California and Oregon and Nevada. Mm-hmm. They have growing operations in Oregon, soon to be growing, I believe, also in California. But they are selling. Have you tried the Dab Tab?
The Dab Tab, no, I have not tried it.
Okay, well, that's something that I'll have to get to you.
Absolutely.
Anyways, they're not legal in Canada yet, so we can't actually try them up here. But
that's probably why I haven't tried it.
That's probably why. Okay, so let's see. Today we also talked to 337, yeah. So we're going to switch over a bit about mining now because I don't know if you've been watching the price of gold and the price of silver. Do you follow gold and silver at all?
Sure.
And they're both been rocking since...
People are clinging to some safety.
Yeah, well, so this is the thing. The argument against gold and silver has always been that no point in owning gold or silver because they don't yield and it costs you money to store them. Well, now with negative yielding interest rates on $17 trillion worth of government debt, same rules apply to bonds, government bonds. So we have started to focus on the Canadian junior mining space. Why? Because there's going to be a lot of money made in the junior mining space if gold and silver continue to appreciate as they have, because there's a cycle that goes on in such an environment. First, the bullion prices start to rise. We've already seen that happen. Then we see the major mining companies start to appreciate. We've already seen that happen. Then it's the mid-tier miners that start to appreciate. That's already happening, but the junior golds have not yet started to move significantly. There's just a little bit of sign of life there, but we're starting to see the junior golds and the junior mining companies come back, junior precious metals. And by way of example, here's Kerry Knoll from Generation Mining. Kerry Knoll joins me now, chairman of Generation Mining, trading on the CSE under the symbol GENM. Kerry, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for hosting me.
You bet. Okay, we've got so much we can talk about here, Kerry, because you guys have done this before. Let's start with an overview. What is Generation Mining doing right now?
Our main project is a palladium deposit in northern Ontario. It's a large palladium deposit. I believe it's the largest undeveloped palladium property in North America and one of the top 5 or 6 in the world.
I think you're talking about the Marathon property, which has got a little bit of fame to it.
That's correct. It's got a lot of history behind it. It was back in 2010. Stillwater Mining took the company that owned it over for 118 million US dollars, and we managed to pick that up for about $6 million earlier this year.
Huh. Okay, and so the obvious question then is, why would Stillwater abandon it?
Well, Stillwater put it on the shelf. They didn't ever abandon it. They put it on the shelf in 2014 when the price of palladium was weak and the mining market was extremely weak. It was very difficult to raise capital. They had redone the feasibility study internally and didn't like the numbers that they saw. Bear in mind that back then palladium was trading around $500 an ounce. Currently it's trading over $1,500 an ounce, so it's tripled. So the economics have changed drastically.
Okay, and maybe you could enlighten us, because I'm sure my audience would like to know, why is it that palladium suddenly reversed places with platinum in the commodities market?
Well, platinum has always been the king of the platinum group metals, and the reason being is because more of it was used for jewelry, for investment, and starting in the 80s and 90s, it was the most popular metal to be used in a catalytic converter in cars. And in the early 2000s, testing different chemistries, they discovered that palladium with a little bit of rhodium did a better job on gasoline-powered cars, not so on diesel. So as a result, over the last 15 years, virtually all the gasoline cars in the world now are using palladium.
And diesel propulsion is kind of fading in favor, isn't it?
Well, it is in automobiles, but they still use it in the big tractor trailers, in locomotives. There's lots of platinum going into catalytic converters.
Okay. Okay, so when you picked this up from Stillwater, what had been done and what has been done since?
Well, previous to Stillwater getting involved, the previous company had done a feasibility study that was very positive, and in fact, that feasibility study was done at $321 palladium. Stillwater acquired it, started the permitting process, spent something like $35 million on permitting, and then, as I mentioned, in 2014, put it on the shelf. In 2016, Stillwater was purchased by a South African company called Savannah. And Savannah maintained the property but did very little work on it over the next 3 years. Savannah's history is not being a mine builder. They've been a mine acquirer. And at the economics at the time, they did very little work on this. Now that palladium has run up, they decided that they would bring in a partner to develop it. They do have a back-end right. They can pay us 31% of the capex numbers upon feasibility study and buy their way back to 51% ownership, and we would have 49% ownership.
31% of the capex required to build the mine if it goes to production?
Yes, they would have to put that money into the joint venture, and then we'd be 51-49 afterwards. That's if they elected to go back to come back into the project in a much bigger way and become the operator. I can't speak for Savannah, but I would think that given their size, with 100,000 employees, that a mine of this size probably wouldn't be that interesting to them.
Okay, so what's your exploration program look like for the rest of 2019 and going into 2020?
Well, we are doing a 12,000 meter exploration program that started about 10 days ago. We're testing 5 or 6 different targets. The targets that we're testing are a little deeper than traditional on this property. The ounces that we have there, and there's over 6 million ounces palladium equivalent there right now. The ounces that we have there are all open pit. We're now looking for some deeper, higher grade material, similar to the stuff that they have in the Bushveld in South Africa. And if we can find some of that, then that will enhance this project even further.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then what are the big milestones that investors should be watching for that would be indicative of you achieving your goals?
Well, first thing we're doing is we've gone back to the original drill holes, and there's been more than 1,000 drill holes in this property. And we have gone back to those original drill holes, and we're now redoing the resource right from scratch. That is because the resources that were done in the past, there were some variances between different ones that were done, and we've decided to just go right back to square one. We should have that out within the next couple of weeks. Second step, looking forward to finishing this year, is a preliminary economic assessment. To look at what do the numbers look like at $1,200 palladium, at $1,400 palladium. We think the numbers are going to look really, really good just based on what is there now. This is with no exploration success whatsoever. If the numbers come out the way we think they're going to come out, then we will be moving towards a feasibility study from there. The other milestones, of course, are the exploration that we're doing right now. We just raised a little bit more money to possibly do an even bigger program. And we're going to be we have 2 rigs turning right now, and we will be hoping to announce some exciting results coming through the fall. So We've got 2 prongs. We've got the economic study coming, the resource study together with the economic study, and then we've got the drilling.
Okay, great. What other companies are there in the world that could ostensibly add to the palladium supply in the next 10 years?
Oh, in the next 10, there's a few, but let's say in the next 5 years, for starters, Ivanhoe Mines, Robert Friedland's company, is in the process of constructing a platinum palladium mine in South Africa, Platt Reef. It's a beautiful looking deposit. It's going to add, in phase 1, it's going to add about 200,000 ounces of palladium to the market. That should be in a couple of years. That is, to put that into perspective, the world mining market is about 7 million ounces. So 200,000 ounces is more or less 3% of the market.
Sure.
The other big change in the next 5 years will be Norilsk is doing an expansion, a 15% expansion. Norilsk is the largest palladium producer in the world currently, and by going up 15 or so percent, that would add to the market. And I don't have the number at my fingertips, but it's probably similar addition to the Platt Reef numbers. So you're going to have a little bit of an increase from these 2 developments, but there's really nothing else on the horizon. There's a couple of other large deposits. There's one in Finland that's privately owned, but really most of the other palladium would have to come. Any increases would have to come from byproduct production. So you might have a nickel mine being built somewhere, and you don't really have much of a nickel price currently. So I can't see too many new nickel mines being built right now, and that's where you would probably get any additional palladium. There really aren't very many pure play palladium projects in the world. They're just it's a rare thing.
Sure. Okay. Interesting stuff. Now, finally. What's your cash position? What was the company going to need to raise any money anytime soon?
Well, as I said, we just did a small raise, $1.8 million. We raised $8 million in, I guess, June to purchase the project and to get the company sort of started on this project. That we raised $8 million then. We had about $4 million left as of the end of last month, and we've just added $1.8 million to it, and our program is $2 million. So we should finish the year with around $4 million, and in that case, we don't need to raise money right now. We will need to raise money if we want to do further drilling, and we will need to raise money probably to do a feasibility study.
You bet. All right, Kerry. Well, it sounds like you're well on your way to another success. Quickly now, what was the last success that you just recently completed? I'm sorry, it's cluttered with the marijuana industry in my mind, but I remember there was a good exit on your last project.
So Generation Mining was actually a spin-out company of our last project, which was called Pine Point Mines.
Okay.
Pine Point had a zinc project in the Northwest Territories. Osisko Metals took us over in 2018, and we took some of the exploration properties out of that company and formed Generation Mining with that as an exploration company. And we continue as an exploration company, but now our main focus is on the palladium because we've got this large deposit and because the palladium market is on fire.
Yeah, you bet. All right, Kerry. Well, that's great. As the mining market heats up, we'll be sure to follow the story a little more closely. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Make sure you never miss a show by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking on the little notifications bell. If you're interested in getting monthly actionable investment ideas in the cannabis space to your inbox, subscribe to the newsletter at MidasLetter.com. Welcome back, everybody. I'm James West.
And I'm Chris Geiser.
And today our guest is Nilik Jha. He is the CEO of Green Relief. Nilik, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, James.
Nilik, let's start with a quick update. What have you been doing?
Well, at Green Relief, we've been proceeding as a private firm, as you know, and gently reaching a cash flow positive and profitable state. It's been a challenging time in the industry with everything going on. So raising capital privately has also been quite challenging, but we've reduced our SG&A significantly, have restructured a number of our deals, and we're focusing predominantly on extraction and processing and moving forward to clinical trials and intellectual property. So we've completely shifted from cultivation, where we continue to have a small footprint, and really now focused on more the cultivation side, from there to extraction and processing and intellectual property.
Okay. I wanted to understand better your relationship, and by extrapolation, the relationship between CBD and professional sports. We saw professional athletes whose names escape me right now, doing deals with companies to sponsor, to be part of CBD branding, targeting professional athletes. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the market right now, you have Rob Gronkowski, 3-time Super Bowl champion from the Patriots. Chris, you're a football fan.
Absolutely, of course.
Yeah, so, he signed a deal, and he retired at the age of 29. Pain's a huge issue in the NFL, and he came out with a statement saying that for the first time, he's been pain-free, and he attributes a lot of that to CBD. We have Terrell Davis, 2-time Super Bowl champion with the Broncos, who's also done some work, and he has a product, DeFi. As we look right across the board, even in golf, you've got Phil Mickelson, who was at Augusta, and he was found to be utilizing product very quietly. There is some rumor that Tiger Woods chews CBD-based gum, and the story goes on. I think the idea is that they're creating awareness to the potential benefits. The challenge, I would say, James, is that is anecdotal evidence that potentially this works. And what that awareness does is it triggers the idea that we should invest in the proper research and development to answer a few questions. One is, what particular formulation do I need for an indication? So if Rob Gronkowski comes out and says, hey, I'm a football player, I don't have much pain, I take a particular product. Okay, well, what is that product? What is the formulation? What is the indication? What is the tolerability of that product? What is the efficacy? And that's where you need the proper clinical trials. After you have the proper clinical trials, then you can go on to commercialize the product and market it. And I think the challenge in the industry right now is, with all the pressure of public companies, quarterly earnings, they're going straight from anecdotal data and awareness and trying to jump over the quality research that gives comfort and go straight to commercialization and marketing. And if we don't have a course correction very shortly, if we take these kind of shortcuts, as we've noticed in the industry, you're going to get cut short. And the idea here is that we need to move systematically to bring credibility to the industry. Otherwise, we're going to replace the opioid crisis with a new crisis.
It's an interesting way to put it. What I was curious about is these leagues, the NBA, NFL, any league that you may be able to expose the CBD to, and so the players could actually be using it. Because you name guys like Rob Gronkowski, recently retired, Terrell Davis retired. They're all open to speak about being able to use these products. Now, how well they're actually active in playing, how do these leagues look at these cannabis products?
It's a great question. So there's a lot of confusion about hemp versus cannabis. So for example, if you have pure CBD, then if you look at WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, the Olympics, well, pure CBD may be okay, but if you're on the black market, you don't really know what you're getting. So if the THC quantity goes above a certain amount, and that is detected in a test, then for several of these leagues, you're going to have an issue. So for example, the NHL, let's take hockey. Glenn Healy, who's with the NHL Players Association, they've partnered up with one of the firms in the industry to conduct clinical trials for the benefits of hockey players. Football is looking into it right now. Tennis and golf, for example, don't have an issue with CBD. So all of these leagues right now are trying to figure out, how do we implement this? What type of testing do we need to do? What amount of THC can we have? If you look even at the broader market, Mexico, for example, allows a certain amount of THC, whereas with the hemp regulations on the Farm Bill in the US, that THC amount is different. So to answer your question, all the leagues are currently trying to figure out, how do we address this issue?
Yeah, because I guess you would have guys that are testing positive that are saying that they're just taking a different type of whey protein, right? So it's so all over the map that you wouldn't want guys in the league that actually, that, like you said, THC content's too high, they're breaking some sort of contract violation. So is that something that you guys are working towards, to be able to have that proper formulation of exactly the proper dosages, I guess I would say?
It's a great question. So, the different leagues address this differently. So in the NHL, for example, if you violate the policy, you may go through a behavioral intervention process, okay, that may not require any suspension of games. But you can see in the NFL that if you have possession of certain substances, you may be suspended for a number of games. So it's really the leagues that drive it. They work with the industry, they're demonstrating quite a bit of interest to identify what are the benefits. So if you look at athletes, for example, the areas that athletes look for benefit is cognition, right? Pain
management.
Pain management for sure is huge.
Especially NFL.
Yeah. And a lot of other sports as well, right? Recovery is a huge thing.
Absolutely.
Insomnia, which is sleep, right? So let's take, for example, insomnia. So you can have athletes come out and say, well, I took a CBD-based product and I slept much better. Well, then a number of questions arise. You could also drink alcohol and you could sleep better.
Sure.
So if you take the CBD, is your performance as good or better the next day? What was the right dose you're taking? Is it efficacious? Are there any side effects to taking that? And those questions need to be answered through the proper clinical trial, so that when somebody says, well, I want to take a product for sleep, well, if you're on this, and this medication, that might be a contraindication. And those questions still need to be answered.
So this is just like the first drive of the game, basically. It's how new all this stuff is.
Yeah. We're still in our own...
In the kickoff.
Yeah,
What about for things like injuries associated with concussion in high contact sports like professional football? Is there any applicability for CBDs in that realm? And is that something that's likely to become standard in sports medicine?
So that's where my background is, James, where our firm Bodie, that was merged with Green Relief, we were doing clinical trials for traumatic brain injury. And we had specific ratios of CBD to THC that we worked with doctors at Harvard, from McGill and elsewhere. We ran clinical trials. We've got positive human results in human studies. And now the next phase for us is a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover study that would demonstrate that, okay, well, if somebody has the following symptoms and they take this product, what we noticed in our studies was that when they would take the particular formulation, their symptoms would reduce, the recovery time was faster. However, if they came off the product, the symptoms would come back again. Very similar to epilepsy, for example, that if you're not on the anti-epileptic. So that requires quite a bit of infrastructure, quite a bit of research investment to get to those results. So yes, I do think the future is going to demonstrate a lot of benefit for conditions like traumatic brain injury, PTSD, depression, anxiety, pain, like we've discussed. And from a molecular level, like why is it that pain works? Well, we have CB1 and CB2 receptors, the endocannabinoid system. So these formulations are not directly working, but they stimulate the endocannabinoid system. CB1 is for neurological function, CB2 is the peripheral body, and receptors for inflammation. So even people who have colitis, for example, we've had cases that we've been studying at Green Relief internally, and patients who have colitis, they may benefit from particular formulations that reduce inflammation, because certain cytokines that are out there, TNF alpha, interleukins, they can actually be suppressed by CBD-based formulations. So whatever you're seeing these athletes that they're saying anecdotally, it is supported by the basic science research. However, we still need to do the proper studies to give that comfort level of what is the dose, what is the timing, what are the side effects. For example, if you have this past medical history of a particular mental health condition, maybe you should not be taking this particular.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's almost a case-by-case scenario, right? Anything to do with the cannabis, the ingestion of it, every person can, it's the same way that I can have 6 beers, you can have 6 beers, we could be in a completely different state of mind, right? And I know the CBD the CBD our bodies do, we naturally produce some of these things that are helpful. So when you're adding proper, good extract to your body, I can imagine that the binding inside your body is what is the helpful, I guess what I'm trying to say is the purer the extract, the better the extract, the good quality, it binds to these things which are already the anti-inflammatories that our body produces.
Yeah, you're making great points here. So what you're talking about is individual medicine, which is pharmacogenetics, right?
Okay.
So for example, if you have a headache and you stop by Shoppers today and you pick up Advil, well, Advil is not specifically suited to your headache. But for example, 6 in 10 people may benefit from Advil.
Gotcha.
And that's why some people will say, well, I took Advil, it didn't help my headache. Whereas the next person says, hey, I was better in an hour. It's the same thing with CBD, with sports, with all these conditions. It's not gonna work for every single person. How many times have you said, wow, I took this particular CBD and I woke up in the morning, I felt great, my pain was gone. You give it to your friend, they're like, I didn't have the same results. And that's the individual medicine component. So what's going to happen is you're going to find what formulation works for a broad swath of the population, that has the least amount of side effects, that has the most efficacy, and that we get that data. Then the doctors are going to have more comfort, the sports leagues are going to have more comfort. And then, however, if we skip that step, so when you're a public company, for example, and you need to worry about next quarter, it comes out in the media that you're not going to be profitable for 3 to 5 years, or you have to take a shortcut because your revenue's not there. Well, then what you're going to do is you're going to hear about professional athletes that say that they have benefit with X, Y, Z, and you're going to straight go to commercializing a product. But you're missing that critical step, which is all the questions that you're asking, which gives, so, people often ask me as a CEO of Green Relief, what's your definition of maximizing shareholder value? And I say long-term shareholder value involves quality products with quality research that provides a streamline of revenue. And our mantra at Green Relief is to do good and do well. So if we do this the right way, then there's a streamline of revenue and we can help more people and bring more comfort to the doctors in the healthcare system.
All right, Neil, that's a great contribution as usual. Thanks so much for the update. We'll come back to you soon.
Thanks for having me, James. Thanks, Chris. Great to meet you.
You too as well.